anxious South Africans eyeing the South African Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee, hoping for a reprieve on another interest rate hike today. A decision is expected shortly, but just to bring us into perspective, let's bring on analyst Ted Blom. Ted, a very good morning, and thank you so much for making the time to speak to us today.
Good morning.
I imagine you've been watching that process there. The energy minister says the energy crisis is not a South African phenomenon, but South Africans don't believe this, although taking responsibility, saying we still have the responsibility to fix the crisis. What are your thoughts about what you've been listening to just now with that announcement of those three power producers?
Okay, so yes, I mean, it just happens to be that there's an energy crisis in many countries in the world, but I don't think that that necessarily follows. I mean, there's no causal link between energy crises in the other countries and the energy crisis we're facing here with Eskom, unless if the causal link is the fact that there's a third force or there's a secret hidden agenda or something like that, and that the South African public and myself wouldn't not necessarily be aware of. However, I mean, in the case of Eskom, this crisis has been coming for more than 15 years. I was in fact hired by Eskom in 2006 to plot out the coal roadmap. Now, why am I mentioning that? Because if you feed the proper stuff into the boilers, you don't have boiler tube leaks. And a power station is not made to have boiler tube leaks on a daily basis or a weekly basis. Once you seal up the boiler and you construct it, I mean, that's it. That should last for at least until the midlife refurbishment, if not the life of the boiler. So, and that's where a lot of our problems have come, is that we've been feeding the wrong feedstock. It's been sub-spec material, and that's resulted in massive boiler leaks. Once you do that, to address that, you need to switch the boiler on and off. That's introduced lots of fatigue into the metal and the structure of the boilers, and then together with that, you then have consequential damages in that with the switching on and off and the load shedding, you now have substations busy blowing up, and of course the other consequence is that when it's offline, you have cable theft. So there's a whole string of consequential damages that take place when you mess up the first step, and the first step is not feeding the correct feedstock into the boilers. Now, as I said, this problem we were aware of in 2005, 2006, and I was actually hired by Eskom as part of a team to develop a coal roadmap. It is shocking that that coal roadmap was only finalized in 2013. My team and I did our first work within a year. In fact, the first part of that part that I was involved in was finished within 3 months. And when I was asked, how come you did the job so quickly? I said, well, it's very easy. The coal in the ground doesn't move around. It's still where it was 20, 30 years ago when I last worked for Eskom. So, yes, I think there's been very, very bad and negligent management. I think a lot of people could be held to account if you want to go on a witch hunt, and maybe somebody else can do that. I'm tired of trying to bring that to the fore. Yeah. But the fact is, the good news is that it seems to me that Minister Mantashe, who's a very seasoned leader, has now realized that it's maybe time for some positive and proactive intervention. I don't think everything that has been coming forth in the last couple of years has helped the situation. I think it's obliterated or made the situation more oblique. But hopefully, pray to God, we're now on a recovery path, because these load shedding sessions are debilitating, even for a monkey like myself, who's just a pen pusher. I mean, it's just impossible to get anything done. I mean, yesterday we had three hours of power in a working day. You can't, it's not possible to earn a living on 3 hours work a day.
So to what extent do you think today's announcement will solve South Africa's energy crisis? As part of that intervention announced in July by President Cyril Ramaphosa, one of the elements is the encouragement of people such as yourself who've worked with Eskom before to be re-engaged. Will you be talking to government? Have they reached out to you?
I was invited back to Eskom. Now, I mean, I don't want to talk about coffee table talk. I was invited back to Eskom by the COO in 2020. He introduced me to the new CEO. He then offered, I think he extended himself. He offered my services because he knew me from my previous role at Eskom in the late 80s and in 2006. He invited me and made me available, my services available to the CEO. Unfortunately, the CEO thought it fit at the time that I was not the right person or not suitable to be recruited back into Eskom, and that he could accomplish whatever I could achieve plus more on his own, notwithstanding the fact that Mr. Mabuza, the previous CEO, had actually called me in, had asked me to bring my team, and then couldn't get political approval for bringing me and my team back in. And I mean, it's quite amazing because when Mabuza approached me, and may his soul rest in peace, but when he approached me, he asked me, if I could come. I said, I need my team. He said, go and find out if your team's available. And barring one person who's suffering from bad Alzheimer's in the United States, everybody else was ready, willing, and able to roll up their sleeves and immediately jump on ship and try and come and fix up Eskom at that time. The person in the United States, a very senior person, said, man, he can't physically be here, but he will be more than willing to sit every day on the internet on a Zoom conference call and help us and guide us and help rescue the ship. So yes, there's not a shortage of people willing to come and help. It's the issue that, as Minister Mantashe has just alluded, the people in steering the ship need to be humble enough to understand their shortcomings and understand that there's actually some goodwill from outside the organization, from people who actually have some experience about Eskom and are committed patriots who are prepared to come and help. It doesn't help if you have a person that's arrogant and thinks he knows everything himself and tries to cut everybody who wants to help down to the ground. That's not a cooperative situation. And that's when you get the antagonism that Mr. Mantashe has been talking about, and which we now at this dire state in our economy can't afford. We can't afford to have bickering between people and jealousy. We need people who are honest, patriotic, capable, and willing to come and help and rescue the ship.
Of course, you come in on a technical and operational side, but there's another massive problem that the leadership of Eskom itself has alluded to, of vandalism and what they have called sabotage. What kind of solutions do we have here, especially if you're throwing shots in the dark, you don't really know who's responsible for this?
Well, it's amazing that you mentioned this because the sabotage issue, I'm not too sure that the sabotage that has been spoken about is actually the sabotage that I'm fully aware of. The sabotage that I was aware of right more than 10 years ago, in 28, when I was at Eskom and twiddling my thumbs waiting to the next step of the recall roadmap, they said to me, listen here, you've been around Eskom for a while. Can you help us out? I said, of course. I mean, I'm being paid for all this time I'm waiting here. Let me help you. And I sat in on numerous tender committees, and we installed condition monitoring and tampering equipment. I'm lying to you. I didn't install it. I approved the tenders for that to be installed. And in due course, a lot of that stuff apparently was installed. I wasn't part of the installation because my contract was abruptly terminated by the powers that be when I started whistleblowing about the corruption that I saw at the time. But to the best of my knowledge, that equipment was installed. But dutifully removed by corrupt people who make more money from kickbacks when the equipment is destroyed or stolen. And hence the corruption at the executive level at Eskom was already quite rife at that time, so that no action was taken against those people who were removing the condition and tampering proof equipment or condition monitoring equipment. So yes, that is one step. And I think with technology, and I think Eskom has alluded to that, they're now using drones. Drones weren't available in 2008, but there is certainly a lot of sophisticated tampering monitoring equipment that's available. And to the extent that that has been sabotaged, and that's the sabotage I know of, has been sabotaged and removed to facilitate replacement of equipment and kickbacks, well, that's not a very difficult issue to sort out. But yes, I think I can bring something to the party, not in an executive role. I'm now too old, and I've been through cancer. I think, but I'm really willing to help where I can.